I'm some guy and this is my Jeep. I want to build a trunk storage area because these Cherokees have a lot more storage space in the back than most your TJs have. But it's still not the best, most accessible stuff. You start camping, throwing stuff in there, it gets crowded. Speaking of crowded, I'm some guy from the future, and let me tell you, you don't need to build something. I've already built it. What do you mean it's already in here? It's in there. Open the thing up and you'll see how amazing our future technology can be. My God, this is awesome. There's so much storage space. This is so accessible. How'd you build it? How can I want to know how to build this. If you want to find out how to build this, you're just gonna have to watch the video. You gotta watch it to find out. Previously, I tried building kind of a storage drawer system. Now, I was a much more novice builder, and I didn't really know what I was trying to build. Now, in my trunk area, I've got a somewhat organized system. At least I know where everything is, and I'm sure we all say that about our trunk areas. You can see I've got a couple little quick release, quick grips now for stuff like the snow shovel, my flashlight over here. I've got half of a gun rack to hold on the toilet paper because you always need toilet paper in your Jeep, and that's just a law. So how are we going to start assembling this shelf area? Where are we going to put it? How high? How low? What are we going to store in here is all things you want to be thinking about. So I've gone around my work area and just started measuring all the stuff that I think I'll possibly ever want to be storing. Stuff from toolboxes to the ice chest. And I also Googled a couple different, possible future upgrade for ice chests or freezers or coolers. Stuff might go in here. So I'm thinking about an 18-inch height. It's going to be perfect for both the maximum amount of storage above and below and to fit all the things that I think will need to fit. Other than just a dividing and access platform for storing stuff below and above it, I want to have a molly panel or webbing on the bottom half of it so that we can both lift up and store stuff like hammocks and all the stuff we're going to be pulling off the walls here, stuff as much as possible off the ground, off the walls, and into a more organized and more thought out position. I'm going to just start working. Alright, so I've got everything squared up here. 52.5 inches, 52.5 inches. It is a square. But we've got to make it stay that way. And that's the tricky / fun part. I'm going to bring the welder over here. We're going to just start 2 tacks on the corners on the top and the bottom of each of the 3 sides. They're L's. Boom, boom, boom. And we're going to double check it again. Make sure everything's still 52.5, or at least that it's square, whatever that measurement may be. If it's not, we cut it, we re-weld it. We got a little cattywampus right here, so I'm just going to cut a little section out, put a piece of flat bar on the back here, C-clamp it down just so it's nice and straight, and then weld that back up. We're going to do our best to try and not have the heat warp it too much, because we do want to keep this, like I said, squared up, 52.5 inches here, as well as on that freestanding edge. Now, if I was making a square, it wouldn't be too hard. We would just have to cut everything to the right size and then weld it in, making sure not to warp it through heat. But having that open end, which you'll see why we're doing later on, makes this a little bit more challenging. like David Wallace's house, we got good bones going on here. But this is not going to work for taking it in and out of the vehicle. If I wanted to just burn it in right there, burn it into the floor, that'd be fine. I do not want to do that. I want this to be, you know, as easily removable as those chairs are. 4 bolts, 90 seconds, in and out, if it needs to be done. So I'm thinking I want to do some type of quick detach for the front legs here, or rear legs, depending, the rear legs. And so some type of L bracket, some type of box, something to just, you know, hold these legs. The legs will also, you know, still be bolted to the ground down here, but I think they're going to have to be detachable for this thing to actually be able to pull out.
That's what she said.
Alright, we've got this frame pretty well ironed out. Now, so we fixed, or hopefully have fixed, the problem of being able to actually get the frame in and out of the vehicle from, you know, making the little removable front arms there. Now, I do believe with them tightened down, it should still be sturdy in the vehicle. We built, cut up, welded, whatever you want to call it, little tabs that come off the legs of each of these. I had a couple different ideas on how to make the attachment points, but I'm thinking keeping it simple is the best way to do it. So now that we've got those attachment points ready, let's bring this thing into the Cherokee. So I've been trying to align everything the best I can. Now, everybody knows Jeeps aren't really the best known for alignment, but I'm using the rear seat belt, the point where it comes out of the side fender, whatever you want to call that. I'm using that as a guideline. I'm trying to have both ends be about 1/4 inch behind it. Doesn't really matter the distance as long as they're the same distance and even. That's the best way I can think of trying to square it up. I tried using the floorboards, and there's just too many other things that I thought might have shifted or moved or might not actually be a true 0. So that's what I came up with. So, we are going to cut these boards into framed platforms. And these are 3/4 inch boards. So we're going to take that 3/4 inch board, and those L brackets we made the frame out of are 1 inch. And once we have that frame together, we're going to go pick up a nice piece of a little prettier looking, you know, vinyl to cover that center sections. And we're going to get a piano hinge to cover those center sections, and then have this thing be a bifold in the center. Alright, we've got our table platform pretty well together. I didn't quite sand it enough, so it's not closing all the way. I'm thinking something like this, just like you'd see on any Jeep Wrangler hood, a T-latch to go between the wood board and each of the 4 mounts here. Now, these front 2 mounts will be the ones that will probably most likely be regularly latched and unlatched, so that we can do exactly this to have greater access for loading or unloading things into this little cargo area. But my idea for putting them on the back too, for right here as well, will be so that when we want to take this thing in and out, it will, 1, come out, and 2, it'll come out nice and quickly. But we want it to still stay in there nice and secure, not rattling around, and not easily accessible for people we don't want it to be accessible for. Anybody know which orientation this is supposed to be in? Am I gonna have to actually Google something? Now I wanted to use the benefits of a hardwood and the benefits of plywood to get this as strong but as light as possible. And so we chose this wood that I thought would look decent enough with either a seal or a stain to bring out a little bit of that natural wood timber look. But also, you know, I don't want it to get so beat up and stained and just covered in oil, which is going to happen. This thing's going to get greasy, it's going to get dirty, and I don't want this natural exposed wood to just be sucking that up and showing greasy fingerprints all the time. So we're going to start by applying a pre-stain, and then if you want to join in on the people who are making decisions like this, you can go to my Instagram at SomeGuy_outside, because there's a poll up right now deciding whether we're going to do a true black or a dark walnut. Currently dark walnut is in the lead, but if that's something you'd like to decide on, feel free to go over there and get a lot more content, or more frequent content, rather than the bi-weekly updates we get here on YouTube. Now after applying the pre-stain, about 15 minutes has passed. Now it's time to decide which of these we're going to put on, and by an overwhelming 86%, the dark walnut has been elected by you, the viewers. So, let's get staining. What are we gonna do about this? I didn't expect to have to cut that board in half after making it, but that second hinge has allowed us to actually make this thing fit past the C-pillars, which I didn't quite think of when I was doing all the measurements in math that we would have to work around. people make fun of the Cherokee for being a toaster or a box, but it really does have angle to it. It does have some shape other than rectangular and square. Now, those Wranglers, those are just frickin' toasters. But we got this thing done. I have to stain the last part of it, but cargo net, everything's loaded in, and it is just so much more extra space to get things off of the ground here, and I know in the future it's going to help me so much just for day-to-day life, everything from, you know, grocery bags to having my med kit not on the ground, versus when we're going to be camping, and we're going to have a lot more stuff crammed in here, and I think it's going to be a lot more accessible just having spots for everything. All of the options out there, especially the Made in America ones, cost close to $1,000, if not over $1,000. Now that is not bad. You are paying for people who have spent countless hours making this, you know, prototyping. As someone who just made a prototype, that's hard. Making one that's quality and replicable and manufacturable and out of American parts and made in America, that's going to be expensive. But when you're buying those products, for the most part, buying American, you're going to be getting a solid product. But I wanted to build it, and we built it. And I think you can build it too. I don't think this was any specialty project or product. Now, the welding, I would say, is probably the most inaccessible for most people, but it really isn't. That's a $150 welder from Harbor Freight that I bought 5 years ago, and I've been busting out projects with it ever since, with absolutely no failures. Not failures on my projects or welding. I have failed on that, but the welder itself has held up great. The rest of this woodworking is pretty rudimentary stuff, and that shows, you know, how kind of ugly mine is. Shows you how rudimentary it is. It is stuff you can figure out. It is absolutely something you can do. And if you want to see more projects like this, remember, like, subscribe, comment down below, or follow me on Instagram at SomeGuy_outside. I do a lot more stuff like this. Some of the stuff that doesn't make it onto YouTube, just smaller projects or projects that I don't really have the energy or time to really put into a video. But thanks for coming along, and remember, if some guy can do it,
it's just some guy.